I can't say no more. I absolutely adore this car. It's just amazing. Hi guys, Alex Peak Performance Reviews. Welcome to another vlog and welcome to yet another car review, so to speak, or a long-term review, should I say, with the new BMW M2. If you haven't seen our previous video, which is basically a drive review, hit the top right-hand corner now and you'll see that. It's probably worth watching that first, but we'll go through the fundamentals of almost like a review anyway with this car. But today it's going to be about living with. I've had this car on a press loan from BMW UK, thank you to those guys, and I've lived with it, so I've seen what it's like on a daily use on the rutty, bumpy A-B roads here in the UK, which is really, really good, and I've managed to really do a lot of mileage in it. So it does give you a great insight as to how this would be to live with, and if you were maybe thinking about having it as a daily. I'll make no bones about what I think of the car, because if you did watch the review, you'll see how much I love this car. It is unbelievable, but I'm going to go into a bit more detail into it. I don't know how long it will mean this video will end up being, but it may answer a lot more questions that some of you guys who are considering it as a long-term car or a daily car, and it will be probably quite useful to you. Anyway, let's get straight into it. Let's get into the drive. I'm going to have a look around the car, and as always, guys, just make sure you ask us any questions if you can think of anything. But yeah, without further ado, let's have a little look around the car and then we'll go for a drive. First and foremost, up to you guys. What do you think? What do you think of the car? I hated this car when I first saw it. I think the front end is very gawky. That being said, the more I've lived with it and seen it, I'm starting to like it a little bit more. However, I don't still love it, but it looks good in this black colour because it hides basically some of the gawkiness, I suppose is the best way to describe it. But yeah, again, I don't know what you guys think of it. Like I say, looks are subjective. Now, the more I've lived with it, the more I've noticed that it visually on video and in the flesh, probably more than anything, rather than pictures, looks way better than I thought it was. Side profile is gorgeous and the rear is pretty sexy. What do you think? Nice little kind of small diffuser. It wouldn't do much, actually. I think they probably could have been a bit more aggressive with the diffuser. I mean, it is an M, a full-blown M, but other than that, it's really, really good. Lovely loads of, I love the wide arches. The only thing I would say is they probably could have brought out the wheels maybe a tiny bit more. Ignore the mud. I may have got it stuck. That's another story for another day. But the lines on this thing are nice. I love the bulging bonnet, a very typical thing of a modern BMW car. And in general, it's just really, really nice. It shows off the intercooler and radiator and cooling parts on the car. Lovely big brakes. Yeah, and they're incredible. Let's have a look inside the car. Actually, let me show you the boot first. I've always got my camera gear in here. It's really, really ample. I'll put the literage on the display. I mean, some of these you can hide probably underneath, but it's decent. It's probably a little bit smaller than our RS3, but similar-ish size. Really, really good. There's plenty you can get in there anyway. Lots of suitcases, golf clubs, etc. Yeah, awesome. Really decent. So that's good. It's definitely grown in size. Let's look at this interior. This has the track pack, which has the carbon seats, which is about 6,300. Like I say, you've got these displays that come up now with this sound, rotating, colour appropriate to the car, rotating display of a BMW M2, and yeah, beautiful touchscreen display on that side. This one's obviously not touchscreen. You're not going to want to touch that, but the interior is that of a £100,000 car, and this isn't. This starts life at 66,000. I'm going to go into the practicality. Look, yes, we've got a little one, and that goes in there nicely, as anything really. The only thing is with a 3-door. You lift this up and it does move electronically, which is nice. But so that's different to some cars. It's a little bit more high end. I like the fact it does that. But if you've got one of those chunky children's seats, you're not going to get it in there. And funny enough, it was the difference between us buying an RS3, I think at the time, and an M240i, which we were considering. These little Joey seats, big up Joey, they're awesome. They're tiny and they go in really nicely in these kind of spaces. So look, you can definitely get a kid. You just need the right seats to get them in. And then there's ample space in the back. Small adults, reasonable sized adults, the headroom's okay, decent for me and my kind of size, easy. And there's a bit of space behind the seats. That's pushed back, so it's decent. And I think that's the time where you do thank, and it goes back into its a sitting position. That's when you do love a modern car. I think it's cool about these modern, and the fact that obviously the BMW M2 has grown. It's good. It's given it more space. Let's sit inside really quickly. Some people don't like these bucket seats that have this here. You'll find yourself getting used to them really, really quickly. It feels at first strange, like you're almost going to hit things, and it feels odd. If you only have this car for a small amount of time, i.e. on a small test drive, you'll probably hate them and think, shit, I'm not going to like that. But they're fine. Honestly, you get really, really used to them. You've got this lovely steering wheel, which some people complain about. Actually, I may as well address this right now. It's chunky, but look, I have tiny hands. At no point did it feel a hindrance or feel bad. The size is quite nice, and it's got lots of buttons, physical buttons on it. Oh, and a lovely heated steering wheel as well. It's got the M2, M1 and M2 button, which is basically your custom buttons. So you can customize a specific drive profile and modes and everything, like all the modes, change them, and you can put them on these buttons. So you could have a nice in-between comfort mode, maybe, and a wild one there, etc, etc. You could do what you want. But yeah, like I say, the displays are lovely. Lots of real carbon fibre, real high quality Alcantara, and leathers. Smells nice in here, looks nice in here. It is the part. Let's go on to the infotainment really, really quickly. Obviously, all of these physical touch buttons, which are great. Setup is normally the one that you quickly press to go into your drive modes, and you can change every single one of these individual things, which I explained on the my review. And M mode, there you can customize the exhaust valve in to turn on and off. Do that manually as well if you want to. Traction control, you can put it onto MTM or wild off, and it really is off. And let's look into the menu. So let's go. Again, you can do most of this, to be fair, on the touchscreen. I'll go back, and then I'm going to go up to here. It's through both myself and my partner looking and playing around with this for a good week. We noted and said that this is really, really simple to use. Now you can obviously scroll using this. Really nice touch sensitive, very quick responsive touchscreen. Or you can use the roller ball just to go up and down and navigate and go around. Apple CarPlay and Android, really easy to put on. And then you've got simple system settings to change what you want on there as well. One thing that is worth noting, and I found as a bit of a gripe, is the fact that, and this is my negative flaw for the car, I've noticed that you can't take off the lane keep assist and the speed warning settings, the bleeps and everything like that. You can't turn them off to stay off constantly, basically when you get out of a car, get back in it, which is really, really annoying. But apparently if you have the BMW app, which I'll show you a little bit just as we're talking, you can turn it off there permanently, almost to a profile, and it knows, and then it leaves it off, which is good, because I have to say, everyone sometimes creeps over the speed limit here and there. It's quite easy to, and then you get bongs and all the time, and even if you're not and you're close, it bongs. It's just really annoying, and I hate it. I just wish it wasn't on the car full stop. yeah, so a lane keep assist, the same with a car like this. Personally, I don't like it on. If I'm chilling and maybe I want stuff like that, I can put it back on the fly really easily. But yeah, off as a default in my opinion. Anyway, that's enough. Let's get on with the drive. If you've got any questions about anything in here, let us know. Now, it's worth going into kind of annoyances on this car straight away, and now there's not many. Let me tell you now. One was the BMW app thing that I mentioned a moment ago, but I'm just circumnavigating. You might not have quite seen, but there's a quick, pretty crunchy, horrible looking ground in front of me, and this car is deceivingly low. It doesn't look that low. The arches almost look like it needs a bit of lowering, but I tell you what, if I was in the aftermarket for this and for modifying it, I would be careful about lowering it. The side skirts and the underbody and the exhaust are surprisingly low to the extent that when you go over lumps and bumps and if you go in a horrible car park that's low, you can hear and feel scrapes sometimes. And like I say, it's surprising, but it's, yeah, one of those things I wouldn't like, considering it's an expensive car. Visually, actually, also, this car is actually really a lot wider and a lot bigger than it was and what the previous generation one was. And because of that, also, even though visually there's a lot of good perspectives out of the windows, it's sometimes hard to judge where the car starts and ends, and you'll find yourself kind of wincing as things come past you on like tight country roads and stuff. It's hard to visually know quite where the car ends and starts, I suppose. And other than that, some people have mentioned that the steering is a little lifeless, but to me, it has a lot of response. Now, in comfort, it is a little bit dead, definitely, but in the sports setting, to me, it's really, really weighty. Yes, maybe you probably could have a little bit more weight. Some other cars have a lot more weight, like the Stelvio when it's on its sportiest setting. The Quadrifoglio, should I say. The Giulia Quadrifoglio and the Stelvio Quadrifoglio, same steering. But say the RS3 8V is definitely lighter than something like this, so I think they've got it quite pretty right, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't worry about the people that are saying about the steering. For me, it's got a lovely responsive rack, and it is nice. There's nothing really wrong with that. So yeah, that's really it for the bad on this car. I suppose before going forward, okay, look, it's rear-wheel drive. That's not a bad thing. It means that the car is really, really fun, and it's the car that I like. But for example, I'm going out and about today, and it's 0 degrees outside. It's slowly creeping up. The roads are obviously very dewy because they probably started life frosty almost. And because of that, when the conditions are like that, you can have fun with this car if you like to, and you don't mind the car being a bit wild. But in those kind of conditions, it is exactly that. It's wild. So if you are someone who likes the look of the car, likes the idea of the BMW M2, but you are not used to rear wheel drive animals, this car's probably not for you. Even though you can put it in comfort and it does look after you and it is a lot more tame, I would still say in general, for English conditions, out of season sometimes, this probably may not be the car for you. Maybe get an all-wheel drive car. But if you're not worried about that, which I'm not, this car is absolutely fantastic. And I suppose going forward from that, talking about the good things on this car, and the thing that strikes me the most about this car is absolutely chassis fun. I mentioned it, rear-wheel drive. To some people, it's a bad thing. To me, it's definitely not a bad thing. In these conditions, you just have to keep your wits about you. You have to be a bit careful. But in general, it's such a fun car. The moment the temperature goes up and the roads get dry, it covers ground like no other. It is way better than the old outgoing model, and even though this is more powerful, this would still look after you when you put it on the lower settings and the careful settings more than the old one, because the chassis is just better. What you find is if you do have one of those wild moments in this car. The chassis, you just can dial it in and control it and reset the rear so much easier, even on this, unless you're on the wild settings, and that's when you really can tell that this has a lot more power and can then be even wilder than the other one. But yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic. And around roads like this, if they're drier, it's incredible. But yeah, you literally, because it's that powerful, you will find yourself, when it's around 0 to 1 degrees, you can't use the car to its full ability, but you can feel it wanting to move around. The traction control is just lighting up and chirping a little bit from the tyres. But I tell you what, I don't know if you saw that, whether the camera's got that, but like I say, look, at the end of the day, this is, like I say, it's near 0 degrees. These are country roads that are covered. The lights, there's some shade in some of these areas, and but look, this is why I love this car. I love rear-wheel drive cars, but the chassis just corners, corners so flat. Over the breast. It wakes you up, I tell you that. It's a crisp early morning here. I got out filming nice and early, and these roads are great. I'd love them to be a bit more dry in a certain respect, but actually I'm having to earn my keep, so to speak, which I actually really love. It's definitely woken me up. What a car. And I did mention it on my review, the heel and toe, or the gear shift assistant, which is a self-healing tower, is fantastic. And this car is just such a capable car. Like I say, it can look after you when you need it to. Just put it on the comfort settings, keep all the traction control where it is, and if you want to have fun, you want to get wild, you can even put it in its drift mode and it will have its little drift analyzer. Track mode is wild and probably is nearly only really suitable for track, but it has a setting for everyone. And honestly, guys, if you're in the market for something like this, get one. 66 grand base. This one is circa 77, 73 if you just put the buckets on, and if you add the other little bits that this has got, which some of the options I wouldn't tick anyway. Yeah, this is literally, like I said in my review, it's a supercar, a mini supercar for the road. There's no other way or different way to look at it. Honestly, you're getting a supercar with a warranty for circa £70,000, which can't or doesn't normally happen, and it's just so focused and so fun. It's awesome. What's not to love? On that, I try and I can't give it any more superlatives, I guess, because I try to think of what is in its segment and what it has to compete with, and it obviously is the 8Y Audi RS3, and in the fun stakes this has got it licked. The Audi RS3 probably is a little bit more practical for people that want to be a bit more safe, I guess. It looks after you, and it's all-wheel drive, so you can use it year round with more confidence, I guess. But if you're okay with a car like this, and you've previously lived with anything similar, you'll be absolutely fine. And this is the better car. It's the more fun car. It's the better handling car. It's got the better chassis, without a shadow of doubt. Whereas the Audi RS3 is getting the speed and the pace from its all-wheel drive system. This is getting it just from pure chassis, and you can feel that the difference between this chassis and the Audi chassis is night and day. The Audi chassis is still very, very competent and amazing. It's a great car. In fact, I reviewed it and I loved it, but it's so capable from point A to point B. But chassis wise, this is like how the feeling is on an FK8 or an FL5 Honda Civic Type R, or even a Porsche GT4. This basically is a more practical Porsche GT4. That's the way I would summarise how this chassis is. Honestly, that is how good this is. It is a more refined, more bigger, practical Porsche GT4, albeit the GT4 looks better. Some people may disagree with me. I don't think many people would. The Porsche is stunning. This is subjectively gawky looking in areas. Just the front, I think, and in this black it doesn't really feel gawky at all. And overall, you get a lot of good looks in this and a lot of positive looks and admirations and thumbs up from people in this car. And the side profile on the rear is pretty sexy, actually. It's got some lovely curves, and overall it's a decent looking car, I think. It grows on you, and in the flesh it looks better than it does in pictures, honestly. And it kind of just doesn't matter. The car is unbelievable, and that makes me think it was the same with when I personally owned an FKA. Does it really matter sometimes about looks? I don't know. I don't know. If the car is this good and it makes you feel the way this car, these kind of cars make you feel, like I say, does it really matter? I honestly don't think so. And I'm just going to enjoy this chassis just another time. What a car. It's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely superb. Absolutely phenomenal. Brilliant, brilliant car. Obviously, I suppose I hadn't commented, but you would have noticed that I'm changing a manual gearbox. I've got a H-pattern manual gearbox. You can get these in an auto. The auto's actually cheaper. They charge you, I think at the time of press first released, it was £500 optional extra for the manual, and I think now it's £1,300 for a manual option. So the manual's a lot more money. I wouldn't say a lot more money, it's a little bit more money, but it's horses for courses, so to speak. It's about what you want. It's about what you want out of a car. If you're, I don't want to say lazy, but someone who enjoys a more lazier drive, in the sense of you can kind of relax if you're going long distances, if you get stuck in town traffic, you might want an auto, I don't know, or you're used to an auto and you prefer it. Some people do. I know people that prefer autos, but this car for me is about driver engagement, and I wouldn't have it in anything other than the manual. I really wouldn't. Yes, the auto will be quicker, but the engagement and the feel in this manual gearbox, and a sublime manual gearbox, may I add, one of the best manual gearboxes I've felt in a car. I don't know what they've done to this. I don't know whether they've done more. I'll try and find out. But to me, this feels like probably, and I don't know whether it's shared or whether they've done different things to this, but it feels like probably the best manual gearbox I've seen in a BMW, and they're great anyway, always great. But it's absolutely superb. Well, I touched on it and I said and spoke about daily driving abilities, obviously, as you will see, and I said I do have a kid seat in there. So how practical has it been? Well, it's been decently practical. It's decent size. Yes, look, it's not a four-door, it's not a big long car with a huge boot, but it's reasonably practical, and I will answer any questions that anyone's got for me. So if you can think of anything else to ask, please just let me know. But yeah, let's touch on miles per gallon, because people will ask that. I don't know whether many people would care that much in a car. What do you expect? It's an M2. It's actually a little bit thirstier than an Audi RS3. It does around, when you're hooning it and having a day like what I've had today, it's doing around 20, 21 miles per gallon. If you drive it carefully, I've been getting around 27. BMW claim 29. I think you probably could do it, but I feel like you find yourself never doing that. So I think when you're doing an eco type half run, I find you get around 27. And when you hoon it, you're getting more nearer the 20 range, which is not, too horrendous. But honestly, with a car like this, I just don't think it should matter. I don't think that's what you buy it for. as the tyres just get warmer, even on these dewy roads. But I love, this is why I love a fast rear-wheel drive car. You've just got to do a little bit of your own adjustment. The car does a good the car does a good job of it on itself as well. But what a machine this car is. I just adore it. I adore it. I wish this wasn't going back. I wish this wasn't a press loan. I genuinely want this car so badly. I wish I could keep it. If I was in the market for something like this and I had the money and it was the kind of car I needed, 100% I'd have it in a heartbeat. This is such a good car and I absolutely adore it. On some of the factory options we spoke about, I think this has got some kind of a convenience pack, which has got some lane keepy assist stuff, all that kind of stuff. You'll see it if you go on the configurator. I feel like that one is definitely a no for me. It might be for someone else, but not for me. I would definitely tick the track pack or driver pack. It adds these carbon seats, some other little bits of interior, exterior, and more importantly, the awesome carbon fibre roof as well. And for your money, actually, it seems a lot, but that's actually quite a lot of things that are in carbon fibre and are absolutely stunning. I would actually add that. I think it will keep residual value onto the car. And I would go for this £700, I think it's £720 heated steering wheel. It is a triumph and it's beautiful. I couldn't live these days without a heated steering wheel. I've got one on one of my dailies, and yeah, I couldn't live without a heated steering wheel. I love it in English weather, certainly in this climate, and maybe if you live in a really hot country, yeah, of course they probably wouldn't even have it as an option. But yeah, 100% in the UK, heated steering wheel. And honestly, guys, I think that's about it. If you've got any more questions, hit us up. But let me just give you a minute or so of driving ASMR. I don't know what it is. Ignore me, just listen to the BMW. Because I was saying about in my review how the RS3 5-pot sounds better. It does, but I tell you what, this sounds good. Considering we're in an OPF, GPF era. Ooh. Whoa! Yes. What a car. Brakes amazing, actually. I may have not have touched on that. Adjustability through the settings. Moves around. Like I say, it's so cold today. But what a machine this is. It sounds good. Twin turbo, 3 litre, straight 6, baby. BMWs know how to make them. What a machine this is. What a machine. Oh, I want it so badly. I want this car so badly. One of the best cars I have ever driven. Honestly, I have said this before. I think I said it in my review. This feels like how Ferrari 488s and McLaren 720Ss feel. Then it doesn't quite cover ground as much as that. It hasn't got as much power, but it has that kind of chassis. And you can live with it. It's still actually comfortable. It still has a really good suspension that resets and still is not bone shaking. I can't say no more. I absolutely adore this car. It's just amazing. So that is the end of our video on the BMW M2, and like I said, how has it been living with this car? What has it been like? Is it practical? Well, I answered all the questions on the onboards, but I have to say, if you're in the market for something like this, guys, like I say, it's practical enough, has decent boot space. Yes, it's only a 3-door, admittedly, but aside from that, if you can live out of that and not have to worry about that, honestly, in isolation, this is unreal, and as an all-round package, it is phenomenal. For £66,000 base, you are getting a mini supercar. The chassis is supercar-like, it's Porsche GT4-like, but it's more practical than something like a GT4. So if you can't consider something like a Porsche GT4, honestly, this is something that's more practical and livable. So it's somewhere halfway house between getting a mad supercar, but for way less. So honestly, if you are considering one, I'd go get your test drive if you can. If you can't, be safe in the knowledge that I have driven this, and I can absolutely certify that this is not only one of the best BMWs ever made, this is probably one of the best cars I've ever driven, and one of the best cars I think has been ever made as an all-round package. Like I say, you can live with it. The suspension is very subtle when it needs to be, and supple, and it just covers ground and looks after you if you keep it on the low modes. And if you want to go wild and you want to be silly and stupid or crazy, you can put it on the wild modes and turn everything off, and it really will turn everything off. And it just is absolutely amazing. Like I say, at the end of the day, like I say, little mini supercar, and that's what it is. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe. See you again on the next one. Bye for now.